That over rev you heard there was the bike slipping out of second gear. It often does that on the way up with the permanent gearbox. Welcome back to Operation Overhaul, and we are going to get into this Matchless and try and find out what is the issue with the gearbox, what's making it jump out of second gear. If you haven't seen the first episode, maybe go back and find it, and that will show you how we stripped the bike down to this point. Here we are now, the chain case is off, we're looking at the main drive sprocket, and we're peeling back the lock washer so that we can get at the nut. I've got a pair of plumbing grips over the nut. I don't have a spanner big enough. Hold onto the brake arm at the back, and now we can undo the nut. We don't need to take it off at this stage, just loosen it. And remove the chain, utilising the split link. You'll notice I put a sheet of cardboard down there. Last thing we want is a dirty chain. At this point, the manual will tell you to remove the kickstart and the gear change pedal, but I don't recommend that. They're actually quite useful to help you pull off the kickstart case. So I would go straight in and do what I'm doing here, which is to undo the 5 nuts which secure the kickstart case. I think there are a couple of different sizes. Some of mine are metric and some of them are Whitworth. It's a bit of a mix. Just take a quick picture here so I can shove them in a pot and then reassemble them quickly without wondering where they go later on. Now I'm just going to use the levers to wiggle the kickstart case open a little bit, just give myself about 1 centimetre to let some light in there to help me with the next bit. Now I'm going to take off the filler cap. These gearboxes, of course, are lubricated with grease, not with oil. Back in the day, they didn't really have an efficient way of sealing oil in. Now you can upgrade the seals and run them on oil, but I actually quite like the grease. So anyway, with that off, we can see the clutch operating lever, and that's the clutch cable there, and we just need to disconnect it. Once that's disconnected, then the kickstart case is free to come away, so you can just put both hands on it and gently wiggle it free. Now as you do that, the kickstart will want to turn around on its spring. I recommend you just keep hold of it with your hand. And then if you lay it down on the bench so that the weight is on the kickstart, it won't rotate anymore. And then you can have a bit of time to decide how you're going to deal with it later. Now here's the grease. You can see it gets absolutely everywhere. It's a great lubricant. I've got a little bowl underneath and I'm just going to scrape away most of it with a bit of old cardboard so I can see what we're working with. I've got new gaskets on order, so I'm just going to pull the old one off, not going to worry about ripping it to make sure we've got nice clean mating surfaces. The clutch operating rod goes through the middle of the main shaft, which I'm indicating here. Now I've got 2 ball bearings on the end here, I should only have 1, but I've got 2, so I'll catch those, and then I'm going to push the rod all the way through from the other side. The clutch cable starts at the clutch lever on the left hand side of the bike, obviously routes down the left hand side of the bike and then crosses into the middle and comes into the gearbox in the back. And you can see it goes into this little circular housing here, which I'm just undoing. This is also where you can do some adjustment to the tautness of the clutch lever. So once that's done, there's a lock nut and an adjusting nut. Then we'll just pull it out of the back, out of the way, so that we can then get to removing the second layer to get into the gearbox proper. Well, the problem we've got is with slipping out of second gear. So I'm having a quick look at the gear selection mechanism here. This will just pull off from the shaft that goes through to the gear change pedal, and I'm going to clean that up and have a good look at it later. But before I do anything else, because I don't want to remove the kickstart, and it is a bit of a pain in the backside to put it back on, I'm just going to secure it with a couple of zip ties. By doing that through the gearbox grease filler hole. And if we do that, then we never actually have to take it off, so we don't have to go through the terrible performance of trying to put it back on, which is a bit of a pain. I am though going to take the gear change pedal off, because behind that, on the other side of the kickstart case, is the selector box, and we need to go in and examine the springs and the mechanism in there. So this has just got a simple nut and bolt here which close the two sides of the circle. And my experience with this is that it's a little bit stiff to get off, so a good way of doing it is to get yourself a nice big flat bladed screwdriver and use it just to lever apart that gap slightly. And if you do that, you'll be able to pull it off nice and easily. And with the pedal off, we can now remove the little rocker box arrangement behind it, which sits on the same shaft, clean off the grease and have a good look, see if there are any problems. And here's everything nicely cleaned up now, and I can tell you that there were no issues with anything I found in there, so we're going to have to go deeper into the gearbox. First off, we'll undo the nut on the end of the kickstart pinion, which is here. Now this was much tighter than I was expecting, and I actually had to put the drive chain back on so that I could hold the wheel and stop the drive sprocket turning on the other side. I didn't have to do that last time. I could just grab hold of the drive sprocket and off it came, but I must have done it up much tighter when I reassembled it last time. Anyway, when that comes off, there are several things underneath it. There's a spacer, there's a spring, and then there's the kickstart pinion itself. Make sure that you collect absolutely everything. And there's a washer in the back there as well, and that stops the spring interfering with the stuff behind it. With that done, you can then undo the nuts that hold the main gearbox cover. Now each of these has got a small serrated washer underneath them, which can be easy to miss because of the amount of grease there obscuring things. So when we undo those, then there is nothing holding that cover on, and we can pull it away to reveal the gearbox proper. Mine came off nice and easily, but if it is difficult, then just consider giving it a little tap with a rubber mallet on either side just to break any stiction holding it on. On the bottom right of the gearbox, there's a sticky up bit of metal which goes into the bottom of the cam, and that's called the cam pawl. And I've got my screwdriver on the head of it here to try and undo it, but it's turning out to be a bit difficult. It doesn't want to come undone. So I'll put some heat on it with a heat gun, and then put a screwdriver into the screw head and give it a tap just to break any little bit of stiction it's got there. And then after that, we should be able to unscrew it nicely. And while I'm doing that, just to help you orientate, I'm pointing out the main shaft, the lay shaft, and the cam. Now we'll pull off the third gear from the end of the main shaft, then switch to the left-hand side of the bike to withdraw the main shaft completely. With the main shaft out of the way, we can now undo the sprocket nut and pull away the little lock washer, then the sprocket itself and the washers that go underneath it, and there's a spacer there as well. Next we remove the last gear on the lay shaft, which should just come off quite easily, and then take hold of the whole 3-shaft arrangement with your hands and pull it out as one piece. Make sure you've got a bowl handy for this, there'll be grease everywhere. Now, because my issue is with engaging a gear and the cam pawl is implicated in this, I'm going to remove it. There's just a little thread with a nut on the end of it which goes through the cam pawl, which I'm highlighting now. With the nut off, you can pull the cam pawl off. So with all the gears out and cleaned up a bit, I inspect them thoroughly. And what I'm looking for is that there's no chips or wear on the gears themselves or on the little notches on the inside, which are called the dogs, which are used to select from one gear to another. And they all look pretty good. But then when I look at the forks, the things that actually move the gears into position, I can see that one of them in particular is massively ridged, and this is going to prevent it selecting the gear cleanly. And I'm pretty sure this is the problem. So it's time to order a new one. So it's off to Fleabay to see if there's anything up for grabs. And it must be my lucky day, because I managed to find what looks like a really good pair of selector forks only for 20 quid. So with those ordered, it's time to look at other bits of the bike to see what I can do while I'm waiting for the parts to arrive. But before I do that, just for fun, here's a quick demo. I'm going to turn the end of the cam, and that will make the selector forks move up and down. And you can see, I think, or you can imagine at least, that if one of those forks was very badly ridged, it wouldn't move the gear as far, and then you wouldn't get a clean engagement. So, hope you find that useful. Please join me for the next episode, and have a thought for me. At the moment, the bike is in a gazillion pieces, scattered all around the garage, and I'm starting to get that sinking feeling of, will it ever actually all go back together again? Well, I'm sure it will. If you join me next time while we're waiting for the bits to arrive for the gearbox, we will put the rear tyre on and you will see me commit the cardinal sin, what you must never do when you put a tyre on for a tube tyre. Anyway, that's all to come. See you next time. Ride safely.